My name is Cole Jensen, and I'm just your average, run-of-the-mill mage. Ever since I lucked out and got soul-jacked into this world, I've lived by a simple creed. Be good to others, but prioritize survival. After joining the Silverwood Sanctum, I kept my head down, practiced my craft in silence, and avoided trouble whenever possible. My whole philosophy is to lay low. On top of that, I've helped my fellow apprentices countless times, earning a reputation as a harmless, universally respected good guy. So I never imagined that the toxic wave of melodrama sweeping through the arcane world these last few years would one day wash up on my own shores. The day a haughty servant from some reclusive old blood family showed up and told me I was their long-lost true-born heir, summoned to return and claim my birthright, I knew my quiet life was over. Fortunately for me, my power level is just a smidge higher than theirs. Let them flex their power. I've got a slap for that. Let them throw their weight around. I'll make my point, then deliver another slap. But when I finally cornered the mastermind behind all this insane, contrived drama, I found myself truly conflicted. Young Master Cole, the lord and lady are growing impatient. This old servant suggests you stop dawdling and get on your way. Wait a minute. Get on my way? What does that even mean? You planning on taking me out, or something? The old man before me, his hair and beard snow white, spoke with a chilling indifference. His gaze was tinged with disdain, the kind of unearned arrogance royalty might show a peasant. He was the self-proclaimed servant of the Blackwood family, one of the so-called reclusive magical dynasties. He'd arrived at the small peak I called home at dawn, flanked by a fawning entourage of Silverwood's own elders. Accustomed to throwing his weight around, he hadn't bothered with the courtesy of a formal announcement. Instead, relying on his master-level cultivation, he'd try to shatter the wards I'd placed around my home. But his master-level power was useless against my transcendent-level defenses. The wards didn't even shimmer. Swallowing his humiliation, he had no choice but to use a communication talisman to request an audience. I figured I was safe on my own turf, so I agreed to see him. I just didn't expect him to hold such a grudge. Not only was he deliberately vague, but his attitude was downright hostile. You said I was the Blackwood's true heir, switched at birth, right? If you're here to bring me home, why'd they only send one servant? Where are my so-called parents? What about my supposed sisters? None of them could be bothered to show up. The lord and lady are celebrating young Master Aiden's birthday. The young mistresses must also attend. They are occupied. Young Master Cole, this old servant advises you to know your place. Start moving, and don't be ungrateful. A laugh burst out of me, a mix of anger and disbelief. With an attitude like that, you're not taking me home. You're taking me to be tortured. And this young Master Aiden, I'm guessing he's the little thief who stole my life? The whole family is busy celebrating the thief's birthday, while they send some old relic to drag me away. If you value this true heir so little, why bother getting me at all? Go back. Tell your lord and lady I'm not interested in being their long-lost anything. The old man's face went purple with rage. He stroked his beard, his eyes bulging. Insolence. The dignity of an old blood family is not to be trifled with. He lunged forward, his hand outstretched, clearly intending to abduct me. This old servant warns you, young Master Cole, do not bring ruin upon yourself. That was it. My own anger flared, my eyes narrowing as killing intent gathered. You clueless old fool. In one breath you call me your master, and in the next, you dare lay a hand on me. Someone must have put you up to this, told you to humiliate me. Some old blood family. You started this fight, so don't cry when I hit back harder. With that, I tapped a single finger on the old man's abdomen. A pulse of pure energy instantly annihilated his magical core. The old man's face twisted in terror and agony. He shrieked as if he'd seen a ghost. You're not just at the adept level. How is this possible? Damn it, young Master Aiden's magical source. The damage can't be repaired now. Fumbling, he crushed a teleportation talisman. His figure dissolved into a ripple of distorted space. I could have stopped him a dozen different ways, but after a moment's thought, I let him go. The reason was simple. He was clearly acting on orders, sent to capture me for some nefarious purpose. Killing him would be easy, but it would mean all-out war with the Blackwood clan. Better to let him return as a messenger. Let them know I wasn't the easy target they thought I was. Maybe then they'd back off. Maybe my quiet life wasn't over just yet. But a dark premonition had already taken root in my heart. The wave of melodrama I'd been observing from afar was finally about to crash down on me. I hesitated for a moment. Then, under the mixed gazes of shock, anger, fear, and jealousy from the Sanctum elders, I stretched languidly and walked back through my wards. I craved a life of peace and tranquility, not endless conflict, until I could get the failure probability of my final apotheosis trial below 0. 3%, I genuinely didn't want to leave my mountain, much less get entangled in some family feud. But laying low doesn't mean being a doormat. Since I already had a bad feeling about this, it was time to prepare to show my teeth to those who'd so foolishly overreached. I hope you people are reasonable, but if you're not, I know a thing or two about persuasion myself. I chuckled. Old friend, it's been a while. Sorry for leaving you to gather dust at the bottom of a chest all these years. But don't worry, I have a feeling you'll be open for business very soon. Back in my sanctum, I gestured with my hand, and a long, dark banner materialized before me. The staff, carved from thousand-year-old obsidian wood, was solid and unyielding, its grain fine and deep. The banner itself, a canvas of silky, dark fabric inscribed with intricate arrays of runes, shimmered with a faint, shadowy aura, radiating an unnerving, oppressive cold. I really just wanted to walk the quiet path to ascension. But since you refused to take the hint, don't blame me for inviting you all over for a chat inside my Soul-Reaver banner. My name is Cole Jensen, and I'm just your average, run-of-the-mill, transcendent peak mage. For the last few years, I'd hit a plateau. No matter how many simulations I ran, I couldn't get the failure rate for my apotheosis trial below 0. 3%. And according to Murphy's Law, anything that isn't a statistical improbability is bound to happen. Not wanting to commit magical suicide, I holed up in my private sanctum on my mountain peak, leaving only when absolutely necessary. Sanctum missions, supply runs, I had junior apprentices handle all of it. In return, all I had to do was offer a little guidance, sharing insights from when I was at their stage. The handful of truly dedicated students in the sanctum were more than happy to do my errands in exchange for personal tutoring based on my book, 3 years to Arcane Spark, 5 years to Adept, which had become the unofficial foundational text for all apprentices. I say a handful because the atmosphere in the arcane world has been off lately. At first, everyone was focused on achieving immortality, myself included. But then, it was like a plague of obsessive romance and melodrama swept through the community. Initially, I didn't think much of it. The goal of our practice is eternal life, sure, but you can't pursue it at the cost of living. What's the point of becoming a passionless, undying eunuch? I even held out hope that one day, a beautiful and kind sorceress might see the light I kept hidden and want to spend eternity with me. Things weren't that simple. Somehow, sweet romance devolved into a minefield of toxic, angst-ridden drama. There was the coven leader who sacrificed his bonded mate for his one true love. The powerful sorceress who left her groom at the altar a dozen times to go take care of her sensitive male apprentice. The demon lord who became obsessed with a human girl who looked just like his lost love, leading to a continent-spanning, bloody chase to win her back. The senior adept who secretly cursed his own partner to transfer her magical achievements to a younger, more promising prodigy, then framed her for plagiarism. There was even an archmage who rescued his childhood sweetheart from her mortal life by brutally murdering her husband, only for her to embrace dark magic and destroy him in revenge. It was all so bizarre, so utterly unnatural. If it weren't for the lack of tentacled horrors and flesh-fused monstrosities, I'd have sworn the very fabric of reality had been corrupted. Regardless, a wise man doesn't stand next to a collapsing wall. Seeing the world descend into madness, I gave up my fantasy of a magical maiden rescuing this arcane goblin. I retreated into the sanctum, refusing to participate, interfere, or compete. I just kept my head down and quietly coasted my way to the position of senior adept of the inner circle. I didn't push further for the title of personal disciple because the sanctum's elders all seemed a bit unhinged themselves, with their own apprentices constantly embroiled in romantic psychodramas. Every other week, one of their star pupils would mutter, "I don't love you anymore," before vanishing from the sanctum, never to be seen again. As senior adept, I already had my own peak and private sanctum. My primary focus now was on mastering the fundamental laws of reality, honing my own state of being, and accumulating power, not things that required vast resources. There was no point in getting sucked into that ridiculous vortex for a few extra trinkets. Just as I was on the verge of getting my trial failure rate below 0, 35%, ready to make the final push and start preparing for ascension, trouble came knocking. The existence of the old blood Blackwood family was no secret. Their power ran deep, far beyond what an ordinary institution like ours could match. In fact, many magical institutions were secretly controlled by these reclusive dynasties. That, perhaps, was why our elders, who were usually busy either showing off or getting entangled in their own love affairs, had been so willing to grovel before a mere Blackwood family servant. Too bad for them. The power of an old blood family probably capped out at the ascendant level. I had long since surpassed the realm of my peers and seniors. If I couldn't guarantee a 100% safe apotheosis, did they really think I couldn't handle a swarm of buzzing gnats? So, I continued to lay low on my mountain, running simulations of my trial's potential pitfalls, while waiting to see what drama would unfold next. Sure enough, a few days later, an apprentice showed up at my door, telling me I was summoned to the Hall of Judgment. What is it? The Blackwoods are back. No, it's not the Blackwoods. The junior apprentice, a young woman I'd tutored often, was respectful. She leaned in and whispered, "It's the new apprentice in the inner circle. His female admirers have reported you to the hall. They're saying you stole his catalyst pill." The shock was so great that the tea I was drinking went down the wrong pipe. I nearly sprayed it all over her. In the Hall of Judgment, 2 rows of elders sat in stern, emotionless silence. Below them, a gaggle of beautiful female mages clustered around a sobbing, delicate-looking young man, murmuring words of comfort. The moment I stepped into the hall, the women fixed me with venomous glares. The fragile young man, however, couldn't stop the corner of his mouth from twitching into a smug, provocative smirk. "Cole Jensen, do you confess your crime?" The head elder bellowed, slamming a gavel on the dais. "What crime is that?" I was already prepared to burn the whole place down, so I dropped the pleasantries and responded in a frigid tone. "How dare you, Cole Jensen? And you call yourself the senior adept of the inner circle? We apprentices have given you so much of our time and resources, yet you disregard the bonds of our order. You assaulted the young novice Chadwick Sterling and stole the catalyst pill he worked so hard to obtain. Don't be afraid, Chad, we're here. We'll get you justice today." That's right, Chad is the sweetest. He finally got one catalyst pill, and the senior adept just stole it. I bet he was just jealous that Chad is more popular than him. So petty. This was deliberate. The women shielded the young man they called Chadwick, chirping accusations at me. Meanwhile, Chad himself, with tears streaming down his face, mumbled pitifully while shooting me triumphant, calculating glances. It might not have been the senior adept. He whimpered, his voice trembling. I was so scared, I didn't get a clear look at the man in black. His build, his aura, the way he moved, it was exactly like the senior adept's. I know he doesn't like me, because I stole his spotlight. I'm so sorry, senior adept. I'll stay away from you from now on, I promise. But that catalyst pill is so important to me. Please, can you just give it back? Please. Stop. Watching Chadwick's performance, looking as if a strong breeze might knock him over, only inflamed the women further. And you call yourself a senior adept? You have no grace at all. All you do is pick on a new apprentice out of jealousy. Cole Jensen, give Chad his catalyst pill back right now. Then get on your knees and apologize. Senior adept, I was wrong about you. I actually thought you were a good person, helping all of us. Seeing this spectacle, I gave up any hope of a reasonable conversation. Not only was I walking into a self-incrimination trap, but I was clearly dealing with a group of NPCs stuck in a logic loop. Saying another word would be a waste of breath. I turned to the elders sitting high above. So, what's your verdict? The head elder of the hall cleared his throat, feigning impartiality. Cole, you see, your fellow apprentices have brought this matter before us. It puts us in a difficult position. Do you have any evidence to prove you didn't steal Chadwick's pill? If not, we'll have no choice but to order you to compensate him with your entire fortune and then cripple your own powers as an apology. I almost laughed out loud. Elder, you're aware that the book all our apprentices study, 5 Years to Adept, was written by me, right? As the author of a guide to becoming an adept, it stands to reason that I am, in fact, an adept myself, correct? So what use would I, a mage far beyond the adept level, have for Chadwick's catalyst pill? And don't forget, I also wrote the Sanctum Standard Alchemy Primer. Nobody knows the taste of elixirs better than I do. That pill tastes like chalk and battery acid. It would chip a tooth if you tried to eat it like candy. What kind of idiot would I have to be to steal one? Another elder spoke, his voice slick with malice. Perhaps you were jealous of Chadwick's popularity with the female apprentices, and so you committed a spiteful, pointless act. If you wish to prove your innocence, there is only one way. Cripple your own magic. I was growing tired of their insanity. I decided to give the head elder one last chance to save himself. Fine. Then I accused Chadwick, these apprentices, and that last elder of conspiring with demons to summon the outer god Azathoth, and of complicity in the abuse of the indigenous Gnostics of Pandora. Azathoth, the planet Pandora? Cole Jensen, you are the one on trial. If you have no evidence to prove your innocence, you should be compensating Chadwick, not making these ridiculous, baseless accusations. The head elder looked at me with profound disappointment. Cole, you've changed. You used to be selfless, generous, magnanimous. A cold smile spread across my face as I summoned the Soul-Reaver banner from a pocket dimension, casually inspecting it as I looked over the assembly. How have I changed? I've been like this for years. Stop making things up. Maybe you should look in a mirror sometime. After all these years, has your flair for drama gotten any more elegant? Have you found any better ways to sling mud? You're beyond reason. Since the banner hadn't claimed any souls yet, it wasn't emitting its usual black, terrifying aura, so no one in the room seemed overly afraid of the weapon in my hands. Head Elder, I'll ask you one last time. You've heard my accusation. Are you going to demand that Chadwick and his co-conspirators prove their innocence in the matter of Azathoth and the Gnostics? As I spoke, my smile turned to ice. Power began to flow into the Soul-Reaver banner. The elder and the female apprentices, still oblivious to the danger, continued their assault. Chadwick's face was now lit with the triumphant glow of a successful scheme, as if all the power I had accumulated from my apotheosis was already his for the taking. That is a vile slander against Chadwick and the others. As the head of the Hall of Judgment, I cannot allow you to run wild. The elder is wise. If Cole Jensen does not cripple himself today, who knows what heinous crimes he'll commit in the future. Cole, stop resisting. Just cripple your magic, hand your possessions over to Chad, kneel, and slap yourself a few times. We can put this behind us. Out of respect for the Blackwood family, we'll let you live. Otherwise, so that was it. Some of these people were attacking me to curry favor with the Blackwoods. I dropped the pretense, unleashing my full power, the immense energy of a transcendent peak. Mage instantly activated the Soul-Reaver banner's terrifying might. A horrific suction force shattered the Hall of Judgment and pulled the elders, the apprentices, and Chadwick screaming into its depths. The next moment, finally open for business, the Soul-Reaver banner began to emit thick, black smoke, at last regaining its proper, dreadful majesty. Sigh, why did you all have to be so stubborn? I'm a man who prefers the quiet life, who values peace above all. If you hadn't come looking for trouble, you wouldn't have met such a terrible fate. But don't worry. As they say, those who slack on their studies end up as bunkmates in my soul banner. And I'm a kind man. I even threw in a few ladies for you. Try to be more careful in your next life, and maybe lay off the performance art, okay? In the ether, I felt a vast but subtle consciousness quietly withdraw. It bore no ill will, so I paid it no mind. Stroking the banner, which was trembling with excitement in my hand, my mood lifted considerably. Humming a little tune, I left the ruins of the Hall of Judgment and headed back to my sanctum. Perhaps because the residual energy at the scene was far beyond their comprehension, the sanctum's upper echelons, whose highest-ranking members were merely at the Archon level, chose to selectively forget the incident I'd caused. I noticed a few more disciples keeping watch on my mountain, but otherwise, life returned to normal. In fact, more students than ever came to trade their contribution points for my guidance. From them, I learned that a new Hall of Judgment had been formed. There had been a motion to demand an explanation from Senior Adept Cole Jensen, but the Sanctum's surprisingly level-headed master, Evelyn Reed, had vetoed it. She'd even stripped the motion's proposer of his magic and expelled him. Since the master was so sensible and I wasn't looking for a fight, I didn't press the issue. I returned to my sanctum to continue my study of the universe's fundamental laws. With the final law related to the apotheosis trial finally deciphered, the failure rate dropped to 0. 15%. The remaining probability was based on external, extra-universal interference, variables beyond my control. In other words, I was ready to ascend at any time. However, during my final calculations, I discovered some very interesting details. I decided to wait a few more days to see if the show I was anticipating would indeed take place. Sure enough, a few days later, Donovan Blackwood, the family patriarch, and his wife, Eleanor, arrived at Silverwood Sanctum. They were accompanied by a young man and woman and trailed by a massive entourage of powerful mages, ranging from master to archon level. They descended upon the sanctum like a dark cloud, riding a sky full of shimmering swords. "Cole, you insolent brat, get out here now." The voice of Donovan Blackwood, the Blackwood patriarch, thundered across the Silverwood Sanctum. The crushing pressure of his ascendant peak power forced everyone from Master Evelyn Reed down to the kitchen staff to their knees, trembling. It was the primal fear of an ant before the heavens, the innate reverence of the weak for the strong. I just waved a hand, dissipating his oppressive aura, and floated into the air. My own power was carefully contained, the hungry Soul-Reaver banner hidden but ready in a fold of space. A rather unique way to welcome your long-lost son home, Lord Blackwood. Standing on a massive, flying sword beside Donovan, the beautifully dressed woman, my biological mother, Eleanor Blackwood, stared at me with pure venom in her eyes. "You little beast," she spat, her voice tight with rage. "Growing up in the outside world has clearly given you a host of foul habits. We've already prepared a kennel at home to break you of them. How dare you be so ungrateful as to stay out here?" As I suspected, this family was certifiably insane. I roll my eyes at her. "You expect me to leave my perfectly good home to go live in a kennel at your estate? Are you even listening to the words coming out of your mouth?" Eleanor looked positively manic, her beautiful face twisted by fury. "We're doing this for your own good. It's your fault you grew up out there and picked up such terrible manners. You ungrateful little monster. How dare you defy your father and me, and injure Bartholomew? Because of you, Aiden's treatment has been delayed for days." "Whoa, wait a second. The reason you're in such a rush to get me home is to treat your fake son Aiden's magical source? Don't tell me you plan on carving out my magical core and giving it to him. It would be your honor to have your core used for Aiden." I slapped a hand to my forehead. I glanced at the young man and woman standing beside the blackwoods. The man, pale and sickly looking, glared at me with the same smug provocation as Chadwick Sterling, now a permanent resident of my banner. "So, you're here to carve out my core?" "No. We simply wish to bring you home and compensate you for your lost years." Donovan lied without batting an eye. "However, before you were born, we arranged a marriage between you and Isabel Vance, of the reclusive Vance family. We're here today to settle that matter." He gestured to the stunning young woman clinging to Aiden's arm. Her eyes, too, were filled with hostility. I didn't believe for a second these lunatics had anything good in store for me. "You're not going to make me honor the engagement, are you? I mean, come on, look at how close Miss Vance is with your fake son. I can't imagine you'd be kind enough to let her marry me." "Ah, in your dreams, you little animal," Lady Eleanor shrieked, looking as though I'd just proposed to her personally. "Isabel grew up under our watch. She and Aiden are in love. Don't you dare get any ideas, you toad lusting after a swan. We are here for you two to annul the engagement." I was already growing weary of this family of frauds. My patience was wearing thin. "Fine, annul it. I don't even know her. Just let her marry your fake son. Why did you even need to come find me?" Eleanor suddenly smiled, a greedy, calculating light in her eyes. "Oh, you can't just annul it for free. You and Isabel had an engagement, which practically makes you husband and wife. By that logic, isn't your power a shared asset? If you annul the contract, you have to give her half of your power, don't you? I've already prepared the spiritual potion for the transfer. You'll come home with us, give half your power to Isabel, give your magical core to your brother Aiden, and then live in the kennel for a few hundred years. Then we can all be one big, happy family." My patience was gone. "Shut up. I want the truth." I raised my hand, and 4 small pills shot like lightning into the mouths of Donovan, Eleanor, Aiden, and Isabel. Just a little something I whipped up a while back. Truth serum. All 4 of them struggled, their faces contorting, but the words began to spill out uncontrollably. Donovan stood tall, his expression imperious. "Give Cole's magical core to Aiden, and his talent will be restored. Give half his power to that Vance girl, to fulfill my promise to her mother. After all, her mother is quite persuasive, and I can't just enjoy her company without doing her a favor. Besides, Aiden is my son with my first love, Rebecca Shaw. Making that which Eleanor's son sacrifice his core for him is a fitting use for a worthless child." Eleanor's face was a mask of motherly love. "I'm a compassionate person. I can't bear to see my son suffer. So I had the kennel placed right next to the latrine in the backyard. Out of sight, out of mind. It's his fate to be my son with that cuckold Donovan. It is his honor to be of use to my true son with my soulmate, Ivan Grant, and repair his magical source." Aiden had a pitiful look on his face. "I've already prepared 108 ways for my sisters and I to frame my dear older brother once he gets home. Why won't he just cooperate?" Isabel declared, "That Cole Jensen is obviously a bad person. I can't let him bully my Aiden. I have to strike first." Donovan and Eleanor suddenly stared at each other, their faces a canvas of shock and horror. "Aiden is supposed to be my son. I'm the one who switched him. You cheating shrew. Aiden is my son. I had Bartholomew swap him. In midair, the lord and lady of the Blackwood family began to physically brawl, pulling hair and kicking groins. It was a pathetic sight, right? Not a single normal person in the bunch. Stop fighting. Stop it. Aiden was nearly in tears. My magical source is what's important here. I don't care if you two old fools kill each other, but my injury can't wait. You have to fix me. I glanced up at the roiling storm clouds gathering in the sky, a hint of lightning flickering within them. I sneered. Are you enjoying this? You seem to be having a lot of fun directing this little play. Unfortunately, this cast is just dreadful. Time to clear the stage. With that, I stopped concealing my power. The full pressure of a transcendent peak, mage, slammed down from the heavens. The brawling blackwoods, their magical energy frozen solid by my aura, shrieked as they plummeted from the sky. But I couldn't let them hurt themselves, could I? I unfurled the Soul-Reaver banner, thoughtfully catching each and every one of them inside. High above, in the ninth heaven, a consciousness tried to flee, but it was too late. It found itself trapped by the raw power of my apotheosis, which I had just initiated. It had no choice but to start gathering the power for a divine punishment. I didn't give it the chance. Unleashing my full aura, I shot straight up into the leaden clouds where the celestial storm was brewing. Crack boom, boom. The roar of thunder shook the very foundations of the world. In the distant sky, ink-black clouds churned and raged for a full hour before gradually falling silent. The next moment, the clouds vanished, the lightning died, and I descended slowly from the sky, dragging a bruised and tear-streaked girl in a white dress behind me. The girl was clutching her rear, her face a mixture of indignation and grief. She risked a glance at me, saw I was staring, and quickly looked away. Can we call it a truce? Right now? You have to be kidding me. Turning the entire arcane world into a cesspool of toxic drama was one thing. But I was minding my own business, waiting to ascend, and you threw all this nonsense at me just to be annoying. Now, what do you think your punishment should be? The girl immediately covered her backside, her eyes widening in alarm as fresh tears welled up. No more hitting. If you hit me again, my butt is going to split open. Wah. With that, she broke down into pitiful sobs. What the hell? The books all said that even the strongest heroes are bound by rules. They said no individual, no matter how powerful, can escape the bonds of family. Why didn't any of it work on you? I asked with a smirk. What books? Let me see. Sniffling, the girl reluctantly handed over a tablet. Here. I picked it up from the dimensional rift your soul came through when you arrived in this world. I turned it on. The browsing history was filled with titles from web novel sites. The Billionaire Alpha and the Ice Queen, Destiny's Embrace, My Heart, Unveiled, Switched at Birth, A Love Beyond Lies. Towards the bottom of the list, the titles shifted to dark romance. Good grief. You're the consciousness of the entire world, and this is what you read all day. I handed the tablet back with a newfound sense of awe. She snatched it back and hugged it to her chest, glaring at me through her tears. None of your business. I was just a mage trying to live a quiet life, never wronged anyone. I shot back. You're the one who came at me with all this melodrama and turned my life upside down. And now you're telling me it's none of my business? At that, the World Soul Girl only cried harder. But you're about to ascend and leave. You've completely deciphered all my rules. When you succeed, you're going to take so much of my source energy with you. More than anyone has ever taken before. If I don't stop you, I'll be severely wounded. This consciousness I've worked so hard to form will probably dissipate. I don't want to die. Wah. If this had been Chadwick or Aiden, a manipulative crybaby, they'd already be in the Soul-Reaver banner. But seeing this girl who was genuinely terrified and hurt, having a complete breakdown in front of me, I couldn't bring myself to be too hard on her. And hidden in her tirade, I caught a few key pieces of information. Wait, you're saying that when mages ascend, they take this world's source energy, hurting you in the process, possibly even causing you to break down? The girl, having hit rock bottom, was crying so hard she could barely breathe. Yes, your entire practice is an act of defying nature. You gather the world's spiritual energy to nourish yourselves, and then you leave, taking this world's essence with you. Over time, my source energy gets weaker and weaker. The ambient magic thins, my consciousness will fade, and eventually, this entire plane of existence will collapse. And then there's you, this freak who's analyzed all my fundamental laws. When you leave, you're going to rip out a huge chunk of my core. Once you ascend, I'll probably fall into a deep sleep and never wake up? I just want to live. Is that so wrong? But that's no excuse for creating all those bizarre characters and turning the arcane world into a cesspool. Did those drama puppets you created actually help you slow the drain of your energy? Sniffle. No, but this model does lose energy slower than the old my fate is my own to control model. Yeah, I'll bet, I said. All the mages are too busy with performance art to focus on ascension. But haven't you noticed that the resentment and negativity permeating the world are much stronger now? The teary-eyed girl gave a bitter smile. I didn't notice. I've been trying different methods, but everything just kept getting worse. Didn't your old world have a saying that books are the ladder to human progress? I figured, well, an e-book must be an escalator to progress. I was sure I could find a solution in there. She shot me a resentful glare and mumbled, and then I ran into you, a complete lunatic who doesn't play by the rules. You didn't follow the script about rules above all, blood above all, or evidence above all. You just dragged me out of the sky and beat me up. My butt is all swollen. I've never been a malicious person who profits from others' suffering. My code has always been don't start none, won't be none. Hearing the world soul's desperate plea, I couldn't help but frown. I didn't actually have a burning desire to ascend. If my progress came at the cost of an innocent's life, a cost that could potentially be avoided, then I was more than willing to pause and figure things out. All right, I'll postpone my ascension for now. First, you need to pull the plug on all those ridiculous drama plots you've injected into the world. They're giving me a headache. Then, we'll work together to solve your energy drain problem. After all, there are always more solutions than problems, right? Two heads are better than one. I'm sure there's a way for you to survive. Huh, you're willing to help me? Even after I try to trap you, you'll still help me? The world soul girl looked up abruptly, her eyes shining with surprise and hope. I gave her a wry look. If you just manifested and asked me for help in the first place, we could have been working on this a long time ago. But no, you had to be clever and sick your drama puppets on me. All you got for it was a spanking. You a poor tink. The girl rolled her eyes at me, but still sidled up, a hopeful, fawning smile on her face. Okay, I'll stop the plot infusions. You have to help me. Watching her, tears still wet on her cheeks as she grinned shamelessly, I didn't know whether to be angry or amused. By the way, what's your name? I don't have one. Then from now on, your name is Lyra. Lyra? As in, let bygones be bygones? Are you telling me you're not going to hold a grudge for what I did? That depends on your behavior. And so Lyra, the world soul, desperate to solve her crisis, took up residence in my sanctum. Every day, she'd sit with her tablet, and we'd research ways to prevent the loss of her source energy. I didn't disappoint her. From conservation to generation, I came up with a series of measures to maintain her world's energy and even found ways to create a surplus. First, all the dark romance and power fantasy plotlines were recalled. The world didn't need melodrama, and its consciousness shouldn't be the one writing it. The old adage, heaven and earth are impartial. They treat all things as straw dogs was key. The world soul shouldn't favor specific individuals. Treating all beings equally would reduce the accumulation of resentment and prevent the rise of prodigies who grew too fast and ripped out huge chunks of energy when they left. Second, we modified the rules of reality. The original rule of survive the trial and ascend physically was changed. Now, the apotheosis trial would massively temper the soul. After passing, the mage's soul would ascend to the higher planes, while their physical body would dissolve and return its energy to the world. The inspiration for this came from my own soul transmigration experience and an old joke from my world about a nation's economic policy. What you earn here stays here. A purely spiritual ascension would consume almost no ambient energy. When Lyra heard this idea, she got so excited she threw herself into my arms and covered my face in kisses. Finally, we developed a way to generate new energy. After ascending, mages could transmit their insights about the laws of the higher realms back to their loved ones in this world through dreams. As the world soul, Lyra could perceive these transmissions, allowing her own understanding of reality's laws to deepen and her source energy to grow. In return, Lyra would grant a blessing of good fortune to the descendants of these contributors, protecting them and ensuring they lived smooth, prosperous lives. It was a win-win for mortals and gods. Perfecting these new rules took over a century, and the details were far more complex than this summary. Then, one day, Lyra took my hand with a smile, snuggling into my arms. "My love," she whispered, "I'm about to level up. And ma'am, I know. You're going to be a mother," I replied gently, holding her close and softly stroking her swollen belly, my eyes filled with affection. After a century of companionship, falling in love with this beautiful, endearingly naive girl felt like the most natural thing in the world. But Lyra was clearly not satisfied with my response. She pouted. Not that. I mean, my rules are so perfect now that the entire world is ready to ascend to a higher plane. Wow, that's amazing. I didn't really get the specifics, but that didn't stop me from praising my wife. Seeing my impressed expression, Lyra lifted her chin proudly. I'm going to be the fastest ascending world soul ever. I'm a genius. I chuckled to myself, remembering a certain genius I'd dragged out of thundercloud and given a sound thrashing. But my emotional intelligence prevented me from saying something so tasteless. I just stroked her silky hair. Yes, you are. Lyra is amazing. She glanced at me and giggled. I know I couldn't have done any of this without you. She buried her head in my chest. I wonder if the child of a world soul and a human can still control the laws of reality? If so, when our baby is a little older, we can leave this world to them and go see what other worlds are out there. Okay, it's a date. Appreciating the vastness of the cosmos and appreciating the smile of the person beside you are never mutually exclusive. Holding my wife tight, my gaze pierced through the barrier of this world, looking out at the infinite, overlapping tapestry of the multiverse, excited for whatever wonders the future held.